It's good to see you. So we started this new series called Chat God. How many of you use Chat GPT? Don't lie. Come on now. How many of you've replaced 90% of the work you do with Chat GPT? Thank you very much. I appreciate your honesty. I think that was a kid in school right there. Education system's working. But we started a series called Chat God. Whew, say that a couple times. Because how many of you ever asked God a question? How many of you ever said to God, where are you? Why did this happen? Would you fix this? How come you're not? Right? Am I the only one? I think everyone's asked God questions over and over and over again. But have you ever stopped to think for a second, what are the questions God has asked us? You see, in the Bible, over 3,294 times, Old Testament, New Testament, God asks a question. I counted every one of them I went through this week. 3,294. He asks questions all the time. And he doesn't ask questions because he's not absent of the answer. He asks questions because he demands an answer. And so I thought, for this next series, it would be a good idea. Maybe we need to answer some of the questions God is asking. Because it's not fair for someone. Have you ever been in a conversation and all they do is say, why? Like I remember when my kids were young and I would say, it's time to go to bed. Why? Well, because you're going to, it's just time. Why? Well, because you're going to be tired tomorrow morning. Yeah, but I'm not now. Why? Right? And finally, I would just say, because your mom and I are sick of you. That's why. Or how about this one? Because I've said so. Anybody get the because I said so? Right? Well, God asks a lot of questions, and I think it's time that we might have to start answering some of those questions. But let me start with this. How many of you ever seen this picture before? Throw it up there. You know what that is? This dates me right here. How many of you had one of these? Come on now. You are now born in the 60s or 70s right there. This, for you young folk, is our version of a great Saturday night. This is a tape recorder. And this button right here is very key, this little orange button in the square bottom, because that was in the middle of the play button, very important to my story. So my sister was a little bit older than me, and she had one of these. I didn't have one of these, but we would spend hours playing with this when we were kids. But when my sister was gone, I would take her cassette tapes. Now, you know what a cassette tape is. If it predates CD, it's between record and 8-track. After a little bit of 8-track, there was these things for you young people. That was a round thing cassette. That was a tape in there, and you had to use your pencil all the time to tighten it up. You know what I'm talking about, right? Everybody understands who's older. Thank you very much. So I took one of my sister's cassettes, and I put it in there when she wasn't there because I wasn't allowed to touch her stuff. Anybody have a sibling? They're just like, don't touch my stuff? And then they were gone. The first thing you did was touch their stuff, right? So I grabbed one of her cassettes, and I put it in because I wanted to listen to music, and this is really crazy. I shared a bedroom with my sister. And so I wanted to listen to her music, and so I popped in a tape of Iron Maiden. Yes, I was an old school rocker from a young age. And so I popped in a tape in Iron Maiden, and I'm rocking out. Yeah, as a little kid, I was like 6, 7 years old. I had no idea what the words meant. I was just grooving to the tunes. And then all of a sudden, I went to rewind it, and so I hit the rewind button, and then I went to play the song again. But on accident, I hit the red button with the play button, which means I recorded over her tape. Okay? Something I wasn't supposed to do. So I thought to myself, oh man, I don't want to be busted now. So me being a smart kid, I rewound the tape, played it, and all of a sudden, all I heard was just this blank spot in the tape. And I thought to myself, she's going to come home and just rail me about this. I'm going to get busted for listening to Iron Maiden. So I, being a smart kid, thought I can solve this problem. I will play guitar over the blank spot. One problem, I didn't have a guitar. So what I did is I recorded, this is a true story. It's crazy I did this, I was an idiot. I re-recorded it, but I used my mouth as a guitar. So the sound was like, and then you hear me in the background with a 5-year-old voice. It was more like Deliverance than it was Iron Maiden. And so my sister gets home, I put it away like, I did this, man, it was awesome. I didn't think to go back and re-listen to it. I just was like, I solved the problem. So I put it away. She comes home, a couple days later. I think I'm clean as I'm good. I'm free, scot-free. She comes home and plays the cassette, and I'm in the room with her while she's playing it. And it gets to the part where you hear click, click, and then it goes back in, and she looks at me, she's like, did you play my cassette? I'm like, no, wasn't me. She's like, no, seriously, did you play it? I'm like, no, man, that must be a new lick that they're playing right now. And then she looks at me, she goes, I told you not to mess with my stuff. And I looked at her and she said, busted. Busted. You ever felt that feeling? Being busted? Like you knew you did something, you were called to the carpet, you maybe found your hand in the cookie jar. Remember that song, Who Stole the Cookie from the Cookie Jar? It wasn't me. You got crumbs on your face, right? We all understand what it's like to be called out, to be called to the carpet, to be busted, to be put on blast, whatever it may be. Spotlighted, whatever term you want to use. But there's this sinking feeling. Well, this morning we're going to look at a story in Luke chapter 8, verses 40 through 48, where Jesus busts somebody. He calls him to the carpet, and it's a story of him finding out this question of who did it. So let's jump in there. We're going to read the passage as a whole, and then I'm going to come back and dissect it a little bit by a little bit. Does anybody know that feeling of being busted? Everybody, yeah? So here we go. Luke 8, 40 through 42. We're going to start there. Now, when Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. Then a man named Jairus, a synagogue leader, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house. Now, Jairus was a leader. He wasn't necessarily a Jesus follower, but he was a church leader. Because his only daughter, a girl about 12, was dying. This is the scene, so we're set up a little bit of background. Jesus had just left. He just got done healing people. He just got done clearing out a demon-possessed person. He just calmed the storm, and he's just going to get some rest, and he's walking through a town, and this dude comes up to him and says, hey, I still need you to do something. So that's the scene. Picking it up in verse 40. As Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him, verse 43. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. But no one could heal her. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately the bleeding stopped. Okay, first thing we got to notice. She's in a crowd. Tons of people walking around Jesus. Tons of people touching him. So she sneaks up and just grabs a little gotcha. Jesus replies in verse 45. He says, who touched me? There's your question for this morning. The question that demands answering, who touched me? He says this, when all the disciples denied it, Peter said, Master, the people are crowding around you, pressing against you. But Jesus in verse 46 says this, someone touched me. I know that power has gone out of me. Busted. Can you imagine being busted by Jesus? Like you can't record over that. He sees all, he hears all. Like there's no way to hide and get out of that one. No way to deny that. Verse 47, then the woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed, came trembling, came with fear, fell at his feet. In the presence of all the people, she was told why she touched him and how she had been instantly healed. Then he said to her, daughter, I love that first. We're going to get back to that. Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. Who touched me? That's the question. It's a question that Jesus is asking that really demands an answer. Who touched me? And see, so the scene, you can see it. She's walking in, she grabs a little of him, touches him, and then kind of skirts back into the background, not wanting to be called out for what she had just done. Not wanting to be called out, not wanting to be recognized, not wanting to be noticed. She touches him and kind of walks away, yet Jesus understands something different just happened. Who touched me? Who touched me? This is a question that Jesus wanted to know. In the middle of a crowd of people touching him, he knew somebody's touch was different. So we're going to break it down verse by verse for the next couple moments, because I think everyone is going to find themselves in this story. Verse 43, the woman was there, and she'd been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one could heal her. The first thing we got to see is that she's run out of options. No one could heal her. She's been trying for 12 years to get healed. That means she's gone to doctors, she's paid money, she's done different things, but no one can heal her. Has anybody ever been out of options in here? She's in desperate need. 12 years, bleeding, physically, socially isolated, spiritually labeled, unclean, as you're going to see in a minute. She tried everything, doctors, remedies, money, but nothing worked. Her life was defined by disappointment. Anybody ever been disappointed by life in here? Her resources, energy, hope was gone. For 12 years, this woman carried an invisible weight that no one could lift for her. Her bleeding wasn't just physical, it was emotional, it was social, it was spiritual. Every doctor's appointment ended in disappointment. Every remedy left her in more poverty. Every prayer whispered, and I think this is where you might find yourself this morning, every prayer whispered seemed to be unanswered. In Mark 5:26, throw this up there. Mark 5:26, it says this. It's a parallel verse, which means Matthew, Mark, and Luke, John, they all use the same kind of stories to kind of emphasize a certain point of the Gospels. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had, not some of it. She's been so desperate, she's given everything to be healed. But instead, she just kept growing worse and worse and worse and worse. She wasn't just sick, she was sick and tired, isolated, hopeless, worn out. Did I say I think everybody in here can relate to that this morning? You ever been worn out? You ever been just at the end of your rope with no other options? Disappointed, maybe even disappointed by God, yeah? It's okay to say that. God's a big God. He can handle your disappointments. She was broken, chasing fixes, relationships, trying to get this fixed. And maybe that's like you and me. Like, we try to fix our own stuff sometimes, don't we? We try to figure out the remedy to make us feel better of what's broken or bleeding inside of us, and we chase these fixes in relationships and finance and distractions and maybe even religion itself. We try to offer and fix ourselves with everything that the world provides, yet honestly, it still leaves us void sometimes, doesn't it? Actually, all the time. Self-reliance, but you find yourself at the end with no options. She looked everywhere, and finally, this is awesome, finally she decided, I'm going to look up instead of out. You see, what I've realized a long time ago in my own life is desperation is often a doorway for deliverance. If you know where to seek and who to look for. She was out of options, but she was not out of hope, friends. Let me tell you this. In her desperation, she heard that there was a man named Jesus. You see, Jesus has his story of Jesus. It started to become a little famous. And what I mean by that is the stories were being told of how he healed people, how he cast out demons, how he fed people, how he calmed the storms. And in her mind, in her desperation, she sat back and thought, maybe, would you think, could he, maybe, possibly, if I just reached out for him, maybe he would fix the very thing I've been longing to have fixed. And so in her mind, she's got this desire, this story's starting to build up. Just maybe he could help me. Maybe he could do what no one else could. Maybe he could fix what no one else seems to be able to fix. You see, for 12 years, I can't get this solved. Can I tell you this morning, church? just takes one touch sometimes. It just takes one touch of Jesus sometimes to radically change everything, to change your life. And maybe it's you this morning. You've tried everything, but you're still broken. The addiction, the fear, the emptiness inside. You've read the books. How many of us have ever read a self-help book? Come on now, don't. Can I tell you something? There is no such thing as self-help. There's only self-positioning. I can position myself for someone else to help me. I can't help myself. If I would have done it before. And let me tell you, don't waste your money reading self-help books. All you're helping is the other person's pocketbook. You've gone to counselors, nothing wrong with that. But deep down, you know something inside you is still wrong. Can we be really vulnerable this morning, church? There's no sense to come to church without being honest with ourselves and with God and maybe others. Is anybody in here this morning? This wasn't part of the message, but let's just call it what it is. Because I'm in this position this morning, and I'm going to be very vulnerable with you. Because I think that's what we're required to do. I'm not a pastor who's got perfection. I'm a pastor who's got problems. Is anybody else kind of broken still? Like inside you there's still something not right? If that's you, I'm just going to ask that you just kind of admit that this morning. Because that's me. Right? And so I'm gonna don't look around and don't nudge your neighbor and say, that's you. But I realized something. Every one of us is probably that person who's broken. Every one of us has got something that we know in the quietness of our spirit. If we were actually to be honest with ourselves, we know it's not where we want to be. We know it's not necessarily right or righteous. We all have something broken. We all reach moments where the mask slips, the strength fades, and the whisper, God, I don't know what to do with this anymore. But hear me, when you're out of options, you're perfectly in line for a miracle. Just one touch, it's all it takes. One touch to reach out to him. But she had a responsibility in this. You see, some of us, what we do is we say, God, why haven't you? And God turns around and says to you, why haven't you? If you're asking me to do something, maybe you need to do something. You see, I can't work unless you're willing. And so her responsibility was to reach out to her. You see, the second thing I understand is not only was she out of options, she was wearing a label. Unclean. Matter of fact, we're going to go Old Testament here. Leviticus 15:25-27 says this: when a woman has discharge of blood for many days, she will be unclean for as long as she has her discharge. Anything she lies or sits on will be unclean. Anyone who touches her will be unclean. For 12 years, this lady had a label on her. For 12 years, this woman lived under a name she did not choose. Her condition wasn't just a physical sickness, it was a social sentence, a spiritual stigma. She lived cut off, rejected, unwanted, and invisible. Could you imagine the hurt in her soul? 12 years of hearing the words everywhere she went, unclean, unclean, unclean. For 12 years, she lived in this world of unclean. Imagine no one to hug her, no one to sit beside her, no one to call her by name. Every day she woke up reminded what she wasn't allowed to be: a mother, a wife, a friend, part of the community. I dare say she was probably a pretty lonely person, yeah? For 12 years, her condition became her identity. That woman is unclean. Don't touch her. She wasn't called daughter, friend. She was just labeled unclean. It's interesting, right? How many of you remember the saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me, right? It's funny because that's such an oxymoron of a statement, because I know this: the labels that have hurt me, the words that I've carried, well, they've hurt a lot more than sticks and stones. That heals pretty quick. But the words that have hurt me, the labels that have placed upon me, whether by myself or by others, well, they wreak havoc in my life. They put me into counseling for years. They make me have a dysfunctional relationship, have a dysfunctional marriage, raise dysfunctional kids until I'm willing to get well, right? So I'd rather somebody just beat me with some sticks, man. That would have been a lot easier. You You see, over time, labels can sink into your soul, and they don't just describe you, they begin to start to define you. So what have you been called? What labels do you carry with you this morning? See, maybe you've worn labels like divorced, addict, failure, unworthy, broken, not enough. Some of those hurt, don't they? I find myself in one of those labels right now. You see, I grew up as a product of a divorced family. My parents divorced when I was really young, and I actually didn't live and wasn't raised by my parents. I was actually raised by my grandparents because my parents were off doing their own thing. And so my whole life, I felt this label right here, not enough. Because my parents didn't really want to be a part and active in my own life. And so I wore this label that I was unwanted. So what I did is that began to define who I was and what I did. And so I thought to myself, well, I can counteract this label of unwanted by what I can do and how I can perform, right? So what did I do? I started looking at how can I be a better athlete? And so I went to college, played sports in college, and got a scholarship for that. And then I thought to myself, well, success would be one of those things. And so I sought out that type of environment. And then I sought out relationships, especially early on. I thought if my parents don't want me, maybe a person of the opposite sex might. And so this identity of the label that I carried was the derivative for how I built my life. Maybe you find yourself there this morning. That's pretty vulnerable, isn't it? Hey, church, if we can't be honest here, where can we be honest, right? All my actions centered around trying to change it, to fix what only God can restore. See, check this out. Luke 8:44. Something rose inside of her. Something rose up. I can tell you what rose up. It was this idea of I have been unwanted for so long, I have to change this. Something rose up inside her, and she thought to herself, if I could just touch his cloak, I'd be healed. That's not just a word of faith. That's an identity shift in real time. She thought to herself, if I could press through the crowd, if I could make my way. See, she wasn't even supposed to be there to begin with. Because she was, what? Unclean. She wasn't supposed to be in the crowd. Matter of fact, she was supposed to be an outcast. But she thought to herself, I'm so sick of being this way if I can just reach out a little bit. And she risked a lot of things by going there. She risked maybe being turned away. She risked the idea of the shame that she was living in. But if I could just push past the label, maybe he could fix it. Maybe he could heal me. And maybe today that's what God's saying to you. If you just push past the labels, maybe God can restore you. Who touched me? You could push past the label of fear, shame, and reach out anyways, because the moment you touch Jesus, let me tell you something, friends, nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible. Here's what else I noticed. Not only was she out of options, not only did she carry a label, but she experienced restoration. Luke 8:44. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately the bleeding stopped. Who touched me? Jesus asked. Someone touched me. I know that power has gone out of me. Here's a simple illustration. How many of you ever tried to turn a light on when it wasn't plugged in? Right? What she decided was, in order for me to receive the power, I have to be the person who initiates the touch. Friends, let me tell you this. If you want Jesus to move in your life, you got to initiate the touch. You got to say, God, I'm willing. I need it. I'm willing. Let me just reach out for you. In an instant, in just one instant, 12 years of pain, shame, disappointment were gone. No more doctor's visits, no more rituals, no more waiting lists. Just a desperate woman in a need of a divine moment. Maybe that's you this morning. You're in a desperate place and need a divine moment. This is awesome because I think this is when heaven intersects human pain. And Jesus is still in the miracle business. You know, Pastor Gene mentioned that this morning, and I still believe that. Matter of fact, it says in Hebrews 13:8. Throw that verse up there for me, please. Hebrews 13:8. Maybe not. There we go. Jesus is the same yesterday. So that means what he performed with the woman who was bleeding for 12 years, that was yesterday. He's the same today, and guess what? He'll be the same tomorrow. So what does this mean? It means what he's done in the past, he can do today, and he can continue to do it in the future. Friends, let me tell you, that's a God that we get to be a part of and have a relationship with. His ability to perform miracles has not changed. What has changed is our ability to be convinced by it. Maybe you're out of options. Maybe you have labels, and they're still defining. Can I tell you, Jesus is waiting to restore you this morning. All you have to do is reach out. Mark 10:27 reminds us this. With man, this is impossible. Self-help, impossible. But with God, all things are possible. Here's what I've learned. After many, many years of being a theological giant, that's not a joke. That God loves you. That's it. That God loves you. He loves your mess because he gets to be the person who receives the glory for restoration. There's a difference between proximity and pursuit. You know that, right? Jesus doesn't just respond to needs. He responds to faith. This woman had the faith to reach out. In the midst of her shame, in the midst of her pain, in the midst of her social enigma, she was able to reach out for him. You see, the crowd was curious, the disciples were confused, but this woman was convinced. Perhaps you haven't experienced restoration because you haven't been convinced yet that Jesus is who he says he is. Everyone else was near him. She reached for him. Everyone else wanted to see what he could do. She believed what he could do. That's the difference between proximity and pursuit. You see, you can go to church every Sunday, sing the songs, hear the sermons, and still never touch Jesus. Because faith isn't about just showing up. Faith is about reaching out. It's about giving yourself to him, and that's why it baffles me sometimes when we have our encounter worship nights, which we have, by the way, you saw the video, coming up next Wednesday on the 19th. My birthday, shameless plug, by the way. I accept gift cards of all types. But it baffles me because we set up times, specifically as a church, so that we can draw closer to the presence of God and we can reach out to him. And it confuses me sometimes when we show up and there's like 20 people here for those nights. Because I know this, every one of you have a problem. Every one of us has a problem. And if I can position myself in the place to meet Jesus at a different level in my desperation, if I were honestly to reach out for him, not just attend what he's doing. You see, the crowd was just attending what he was doing. She was reaching for him. Let me tell you, God responds to those who reach. Matter of fact, that's scriptural. It says in Hebrews 11:6, without faith, it is impossible, not maybe. Without faith, it is impossible to please God because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that I love this part, man. Check out, what does that word say? He what? Rewards. What do you think her reward was that day? Unclean was gone. She was now clean. And so much so the fact that she didn't mind telling everybody why she had been there. He rewards those who earnestly seek him, who reach for him, who grind for him, who grab the cloak, who say, God, I need to be in your presence because that's where restoration is. I've tried it all on my own and it doesn't work. Imagine the fear she must have felt. The heart pounding, hands trembling, getting sweaty, trying to stay unseen. It says in the scripture that she was trying to sneak her way in without being busted. Every step cost her something, but she reached because faith isn't about fear. It's not the absence of fear. It's choosing to reach through it, friends. And some of you have been stuck in this place of saying, yeah, but I'm trying to deal with this issue on my own. And let me just tell you, how's it going for you? Because if you could have fixed it by now, you would have, right? It's about choosing to reach for him. Think about this. I was pondering this conversation that we're talking about this morning. And I thought about this. The creator of the universe, in the midst of a crowd, felt one woman's touch. In the middle of hundreds of hands of curiosity, one act captured the attention of heaven. That's a beautiful picture, isn't it? One movement by you captures the attention of heaven. You're not forgotten. When she touched him, she was instantly healed. But when he spoke, she was completely restored. Check this out. You see, physical healing stopped with the bleeding. She reached and she stopped. But spiritual restoration stopped the shame. How do I know? Look what he calls her. Luke 8:48. Daughter. You see, what was her label before? Unclean. He restores her identity to who he has originally seen her as. How God had created her. He restores her identity. You know how long she probably waited to hear those words, daughter? You see, that's the kind of God we have. He doesn't leave you where you are. He speaks to what your true need is in your heart and in your life. And he reaches out for her and he says, daughter. And you can imagine 12 years of shame falling off of her as she hears those words and just relishes in the fact that I am finally who I'm supposed to be. Your faith has healed you. And I love his final words to her. Go in peace. Isn't that what we all long for? Peace? Ask any married man how much, I say this at men's retreats sometimes, so forgive me, ladies. If a man has peace in his house, he has everything. It's a true statement. She had peace. Her label had been unclean, but Jesus calls her daughter. He didn't just fix her condition. He restored her identity. He gave her back her dignity. He handed her a new destiny. And I'll tell you this, friends, right now, Satan, throw this verse scripture up. I want you to see it. Satan knows your name, but calls you by your sin and your struggle. But God knows your sin and struggle and calls you by your name. That day, her name changed, her story changed, and her future changed. You see, what I've realized is when Jesus shows up, sick are healed, shame is restored, sins are forgiven, the weary find peace, and the impossible becomes possible. When Jesus shows up, Max Lucado says it this way, miracles begin when we stop trying to control the outcome and start trusting the one who holds the outcome. So maybe today you find yourself standing here where you once stood. You're tired, you're empty, you're out of options, wondering if God sees you. Maybe today you're standing right where you are, exhausted, overlooked, empty, broken, unclean. You've tried everything to fix your bleeding, and the marriage, the anxiety, the loneliness, the guilt, and nothing has worked. And you come to church hoping to hear something of hope. And deep down, there's a quiet whisper in your spirit, a quiet whisper in your soul saying, if I could just touch him, it would change. Who touched me? Church, you're one touch away from the power that will change everything in your life. The same Jesus who stopped her is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. That same power that healed her is the same power yesterday, today, and tomorrow. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to clean yourself up to come to Jesus. You just come to Jesus bleeding and saying, restore me, man, because I can't do it on my own. The same words Jesus said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace, is ready to speak that over you this morning. Whatever situation you got going on, whatever issue you're dealing with, whatever struggle's going on in your life, I would love for you to hear the words from Jesus. Go in peace. Faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your faith has made you well. Can I ask you two questions as we close? What's your current crisis? Can I tell you it's preparation for the power of God to move in your life if you allow it? Would you? And what would it look like to let your faith override your fear this week? Whatever your life feels impossible right now. Maybe your prayer should sound something like this. And if that's you, would you just pray this? Jesus, I'm tired. I've tried everything. I need you. Take these words as my way of reaching out. Heal me and restore me to how you see me. And I promise you he will. I promise you he will, because he's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Maybe you don't even know who that Jesus is, and you've been trying to deal with it your whole life. You've been trying to figure this out on your whole life, and you know internally there's something bleeding in you that you say, I've tried to fix, but it still leaves me wanting. Well, maybe today's the day you reach out for the first time and say, God, I'm going to try this whole thing and reach out to you. I'm going to be that woman who takes a step of faith, and I'm going to place my trust in you. And if that's you, just pray this prayer with me this morning. I believe there's somebody in here that needs to do that this morning without a shadow of a doubt. But your fear is going to hold you back, saying, yeah, but you've tried everything. And God's saying, yeah, you haven't tried me yet. And I don't fail. So if that's you, would you just pray a simple prayer with me this morning? God, I trust you. I give you my life. I'm going to reach for you today. Come into my life and restore me. Thank you. You know, we have a group here at our church, and Terry's familiar with it. It's called Mending the Soul. We have a lot of groups at our church. We believe that we do life in circles, not in rows. So we have a lot of groups at Oasis Community Church, but we have one specifically that I really wanted to mention this morning, and that was called Mending the Soul. And it's a group that is about helping heal the brokenness in our spirits that have been there for a long time. Brokenness in our souls. And I'd encourage you, if you're interested in that, just stop by our information booth on the way out, because I believe that God uses things like that to restore us. You learn about yourself, you learn how to give God all of who we are, and he comes in and begins to restore us and change the patterns of the past so that we have a promise of tomorrow. So I'd encourage you, if that's you this morning, to do that. But I want to remind you of this as I close. What are you reaching for this morning? You see, because this is the hope that I hope to leave you with this morning, is she was bleeding for 12 years, filled with shame, busted by Jesus. Because he knew what she really wanted, and it was not impossible for him to do.